Celtics fall to the Pistons 104-103. Jaylen Brown gets a pretty clean look at the buzzer. Doesn't go, but nevertheless, this was a battle between the two best teams in the Eastern Conference, and it looked like it. We'll talk about what went wrong in this game, but also two positive developments that happened today off the court.
Jaylen Brown with the flush. Tatum the drive. Tatum the finish. It is Banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, where the Celtics just wrapped up their 4-game road trip. They finished this road trip 2-2. They lose the fourth and final game to the best team in the Eastern Conference, the Detroit Pistons. This game was as close as you're going to find. I mean, it literally took Jaylen Brown at the buzzer, mid-range shot, bounced around. I thought he might get a shooter's bounce, but he did not end up getting it, and they lose this one. But for a loss, this was probably the most positive feeling just being around the team tonight. Like Joe, Jaylen, Peyton, Sam, all those guys talked after the game. You can watch their full post-game interviews on CLNS Media. But the general sentiment was this. We met their physicality. We met the effort. Nobody got in a great offensive flow in this game, and that's going to be hard always. But you like what you saw in the sense that you completely competed against the NBA's most physical team. This is the second best defense in the league after the Oklahoma City Thunder, the best defense in the NBA. This is the second best net rating team in the league. It was the Celtics entering tonight. It was actually tied with the Pistons, but the Pistons won by 1, so they have the edge now. And so this was just a battle between two great teams. And they've lost 3 or 4 to Detroit, and all 4 of them have gone down to the wire. And you certainly look back and the last few plays here, like Derek missed a technical foul free throw with like 4 minutes to play. Jaylen missed 2 free throws with a minute and a half to spare. Tobias Harris hits 2 threes in the final 2 minutes. So there are plays you're going to go back and look down the stretch of like, okay, the game was right there. I would agree with Joe. What Joe Mazzulla said after the game was that it really came down to some plays in the first half, some 50-50 balls that the Celtics just did not secure. And he said some of those are just bad luck, some of those are just positioning, and a few of those you really have to get. But there were just a couple of missed opportunities early on where the Celtics were able to force a turnover, and then they gave it right back to the Pistons. Like I keep thinking about this one play with Neemias Queta stole a ball that looked like it was already kind of secured by the Pistons off of a missed shot, and then kind of immediately gives it back to the Pistons. So I think you can go back to this game and find plays where they could have been better. Nobody really got in a great offensive flow outside of, Sam Hauser. He had a good shooting night. I'll talk a little bit more about him in just a minute here. Jaylen Brown gets 32 points, which he's been great at putting points on the board, even if he's not necessarily feeling it. This wasn't the most efficient night for him, 32 points for him, but it took 28 shots to get there, 2 of 8 from 3. He was a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line. And then I tweeted out like, wow, he's improved so much as a free throw shooter. He's shooting 79% on the season. And then, he misses two big ones. So I do feel like I jinxed him a little bit. But outside of him, you just didn't get enough from Derek. Derek only made 1 shot in this game. He had a tough night from the field. Peyton Pritchard had a good third quarter, but otherwise was not as much of a factor offensively. And Freddie Simons, who's been huge for the Celtics over the past few weeks, also with a quieter night. So just looking up and down this roster, you just didn't get enough offensively from the other guys. And I do credit Detroit for the physicality, the way they play their defense. They are so aggressive. They forced a bunch of live ball turnovers. Celtics finished this game with 14 turnovers. It felt like way more, truthfully. A couple of offensive fouls. But a bunch of live ball turnovers that were very costly. More points off of turnovers. Detroit had 19 of those than you normally would get off of 14 turnovers. So all that's to say is, if you look at the effort, you look at the physicality, you'll take it. Jaylen's shot goes in. We would talk a lot extensively about how they were able to meet the moment. It didn't go in. So instead, that's kind of not going to be this conversation. I thought they did a pretty good job defensively as well. Cade Cunningham, who was voted by players as being the best player in the Eastern Conference. He had a good game, as far as playmaking. He had 14 assists, had some big passes down the stretch, but he was 4 of 17 from the field. So I thought they did a lot of things kind of to force the ball out of his hands, and his teammates just made plays. And you kind of got to live with that. I mean, again, you held the Pistons to 104 points. you'll live with it. So I guess my general takeaway from being in the building at Little Caesars Arena is this felt like a playoff game. This had a playoff level of physicality, playoff level of efficiency. A lot of times playoff games, you look down the line and a box score and it's like nobody really shot the ball particularly well. That's kind of how this one felt, with the exception of like Tobias Harris and Sam Hauser. A lot of guys that normally are pretty efficient struggled. But that's how these games go. This was a battle, and they put themselves in position to be a bounce of a ball away from winning this one. So I don't feel down about this loss. They didn't feel down about this loss. The locker room spirits were a lot higher than they normally were after a loss, because everybody was watching the college football national championship. And so that gave a little bit of levity to the moment. It was fun to see everybody kind of talking. Ugo does not watch football at all. He was the only one that I seemed confused by what he was watching, like I was. I think Josh was rooting for Miami. He's from Florida. So there was some friendly trash talking. Guys were engaged, but it was just a better feeling than you normally would feel after a loss. And I think part of it was just them realizing, like, listen, this wasn't one of those games where we came out flat, or we didn't play hard enough, or we lost focus. Like, I think they know they were right there. And if it's a playoff loss, those are the ones that really hurt, truthfully. But in the regular season, you use those to get better. And Jaylen talked about that. These are the kinds of games that make you physically and mentally better. So that's just my big picture takeaway from this game. I think you do kind of have to live with it. As far as individual positive things that came away from this one, Sam Hauser was a bright spot in this one. He has just totally found a rhythm in the month of January. Entering this game, he was shooting 45% from three in January. He'll be around that still after this game. 3 of 7 from three. What I really liked was that he hit 3 shots from inside the arc. So that is great to see him go off the dribble. He had a beautiful finish. When he's hitting from the outside, that opens things up for him. But honestly, for him, he had 2 threes early in that third quarter that helped them get back in this game, because there was a little bit of a deficit that could have gone either way. I mean, they were only down 8 at the half, but 8 points can become 15 points quick, and he gave them back, helped bring them back into it. So I asked him after the game, like, he goes through these slumps, like it happens to every shooter, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's one of the greatest shooters in the NBA. And he said nothing's changing about his preparation. He doesn't feel like different when he's shooting around now than when he was in November. In the month of November, he was shooting 27.5% from three. So like night and day, right, in his accuracy. And I know it frustrates people. People want to see him shoot this well all the time. It's just not realistic. Like, nobody shoots great all of the time. What I will say, though, is that the tides have turned for him. He had a 17-point game, a 30-point game, and a 16-point game. That's the last 3 games of this road trip. And again, he has been their 5th starter. I think a lot of people wanted to see Jordan Walsh reclaim that spot, but you're seeing what Sam can give you offensively. And defensively, he continues to be really solid. I think the difficult thing was that Sam is not somebody that fouls a whole lot. He had 4 fouls in this game, which did send him to the bench. You could argue that Joe should have kind of let him just play through that, but Sam typically does not foul his opponent. And so something that's normally a strength of his was kind of a weakness tonight. And I think some of that you just credit Detroit, because they were able to draw a ton of fouls in general. But again, I'm really pleased to see him turn things around a little bit, because when he has that level of confidence, it just opens things up for his teammates. And again, we've talked a lot about how Derek White's having a down year from an efficiency standpoint. Peyton Pritchard is as well. And so you need the role guys to be hitting their shots. And Sam really has kind of blossomed on this road trip. He's probably the biggest development from this road trip, is that he has just kind of completely found his footing on the offensive end. And that helps quite a bit, because now he's a guy you want on the floor for 30, 35 minutes a night, because when he's shooting that well, this offense really, really benefits from that. The other guy I'll mention is Neemias Queta, who I think was sneaky good in this game. Only played 28 minutes. I thought that his foul trouble really hurt them. Him and Luka Garza were both in foul trouble, which actually forced Joe Mazzulla to put Xavier Tillman in the game for a couple minutes, which was unusual. Tillman has pretty much been out of the rotation for months now. But once again, this has been routine. This was routine earlier in the season, but Queta was a plus 15 in his 28 minutes. If you look down the box score, that is the biggest thing that stands out from the plus minus category. And again, plus minus, not a perfect stat. A lot of times it has to deal with combinations and all of that. And of late, Luka has actually had the upper hand when you look at plus minus. But I think this is the kind of matchup where Queta can really help you, because his physicality, his rim protection, his size, his athleticism, you could feel a difference when he was out there. And I was not at all surprised to see that the eye test matched the plus minus test. I don't even bring up plus minus if it doesn't match what I saw in a game. In this game, I felt like they were the better team when Queta was on the floor, in particular because, and again, I don't think this is a slight of Luka at all. Luka actually gave them an offensive boost in that fourth quarter, a couple threes, a putback. So Luka does a lot of great things to kind of warrant being out there. But this is a good matchup for Queta. And actually, if you look at the last time the Pistons and the Celtics played at home, or the second to last time, Amari Williams played for 15 minutes. Luka never even got in that game. So I think Joe saw that as not a great matchup for Luka potentially. And it's great that he was able to be out there and be able to be effective. But I think this is the kind of game where maybe if Queta doesn't deal with some early fouls, you maybe even see even more of him because they were better. The Celtics were a better team than the Pistons with him on the floor, and the numbers kind of back that up. And I continue to remember earlier this season, the Celtics were really struggling on the glass, and Queta was a big reason why. He was just not able to secure the rebounds that you need your starting center to secure. And it's still not necessarily like their biggest strength is the rebounding, but it has trended upwards. I need to, at some point, even when I get back from this road trip, do a big story on just the rebounding numbers because they have totally trended upwards. And he has been a big part of that. 8 rebounds in 28 minutes for him. And shout out to other guys on the team as well. Jaylen Brown had 11 rebounds. It wasn't really his night offensively as far as just efficiency compared to what we've seen from him for most of the season, but he was guarding Cade Cunningham at times. And again, 11 rebounds for him is huge in a game where every rebound was contested. Every rebound was a battle. Derek White had 9, 5 offensive. So you saw guys that were not able to really kind of score the ball as they would like, really impact on the boards. And I thought Queta has kind of been spearheading all of that. So again, I think we sometimes have been taking for granted Queta's performances this season because it's just become like a thing where he's the starting center. He's been pretty solid, all that. But we had no idea going into the season if Neemias Queta was going to even be playable for 30 minutes a game. He had never done that before in his NBA career. He was the 4th center on the Celtics last year. And I just wanted to like take a moment and be like, okay, this might be the best front court in the NBA or one of the best between Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Like they have a ton of depth and physicality and size and rim protection. And so the fact that the Celtics starting center, Queta, a relatively unproven player, who was waived by the Kings a few years ago. Everybody knows the story. I don't need to rehash it. Like the fact that he was able to be so impactful in this one is something that you can kind of build on moving forward. So again, I really do wish that Jaylen hits that shot. It would be a nice bow on this game because there was a lot of things to like from a big picture standpoint. But the fact that they continue to kind of hang in these is super encouraging. So with that, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out the right way with PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. It is so easy to use. The first time I used PrizePicks, it is so intuitive, and it's so much fun. It just makes watching sports all that more exciting. And so many big games just around the corner. So use PrizePicks for all your needs. There's a new feature. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Missing your fantasy team? My league is already over, but with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football with every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I talked a little bit about what stood out to me from this game. I will just say, before the break, I mentioned Sam Hauser, I mentioned Neemias Queta. It was good to see Peyton Pritchard find an offensive flow in that third quarter and kind of get to his spots and create something out of nothing, because at times it did feel like there was kind of nothing being created by the Celtics offense. There was some nice pick and roll stuff early on too, which I liked. He had a couple of nice connections with Queta. That's been something that's kind of been developing throughout the season. But I'm going to leave it at that on this game because there's only so many positive things I'm going to draw from a loss, to be honest with you guys. And you can watch our full hour and a half long post-game show on this one. And every single game, we do a full hour and a half long pod on what went right, what went wrong. It's not just positives on the Garden Report, but you can check that out on CLNS Media as well. But there were two storylines from today that I did want to talk about before I wrap up here. The first is Jaylen Brown being named an All-Star starter for the first time in his career, a honor that I felt like he was a shoo-in for, but he was consistently coming in 6th place in fan voting. Fan voting makes up 50% of the starter a nod, and then there's 25% from other players and 25% from the media. And honestly, I had no idea how he was going to shake out in both of those categories compared to Donovan Mitchell, who was coming in fifth with the fan voting. But he ends up doing well in all three categories. He actually rose up and finished fifth in fan voting. So he would have been in the top 5 regardless. But then he comes third among players and first in the media, which was pretty wild because I think he's somebody that has felt maybe underappreciated by the media, but he ends up being selected by the media as the top player in the Eastern Conference and third among players. If I was a player, I would probably care the most about what my peers think, and being named third in the Eastern Conference is not a bad spot to be. I did ask him after the game if he felt like the player thing was especially meaningful. He said he's not the right person to ask. Like, he really doesn't really care about so much about that stuff. But here's what he did have to say about finding out he was named an All-Star starter today and what that means to him.
Jaylen, I know this is probably not the most fresh thing on your mind, but you were named an All-Star starter earlier today. How meaningful was that moment? Were you watching it live, or like how did you find that out?
I woke up from a nap, and then I had some text messages from loved ones and family. But I think that's what it matters most for, like my support group. I think it means a lot to them to see me celebrated in that light. But I've always felt like, regardless of what people may think or whatever, that I've been one of the better players in this game. Just now I've got an opportunity to show it a little more.
Is there some validation in that?
In what?
In being named a starter and being recognized by your peers and everyone else?
I mean, I guess. I mean, not for me. I feel like I should have been, I'm a very confident guy. So I don't allow other people to tell me what my validation is. I've always felt like I was better than a lot of these guys, but it doesn't come down to what I think and feel. It comes down to media, fan vote, all that type of stuff. So it can go any direction. I'm just grateful because I know my support group. I know it means a lot from them. They've been supporting me. They knew what type of talent I was from day one. And it means a lot for them to see me in these spaces. So shout out to them.
Does the player vote? Oh, sorry. Does the player vote matter? Like, you were third in that. Does that matter more than the other ones, or?
I'm the wrong guy to ask on any type of voting stuff. But I'm just grateful.
So Jaylen is named an All-Star starter for the first time. I think I asked Peyton about it as well. He said it was kind of a no-brainer for them to be second in the Eastern Conference and to be in that position and to be kind of the head of the snake for this team. I mean, he's averaging just south of 30 points per game, but if you look at the consistency, it's every single night is around that ballpark. And even nights where he doesn't have the shot going, he's found other ways to score, getting to the line. That he did a lot of that tonight. 8 hits, goes 8 of 10 from the line. It would have been a perfect finish to this day, I think, for him to celebrate that accolade with a game winner, but obviously that one doesn't drop. But again, if you had talked, a lot of people wondered about where this season was going to go over the summer. Like, it could have headed in a million different directions. And Jaylen was one of the biggest question marks. Nobody knew how he was going to fare without Jayson Tatum and without a lot of the other players that he's played with for many years of his career. Al Horford, 2 great acquisitions from a couple years back, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. And so I think he's exceeded everybody's expectations to up his efficiency while upping his usage. We've talked about it a ton this season, so I don't need to kind of hammer it home, but it was just kind of cool to see him get that accolade and to edge out a player who has been there before, Donovan Mitchell. And I think a lot of it probably came down to the Celtics having a far superior record to the Cavaliers. He'll be joined by Giannis, by Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, as other starters as well. So we'll see, how the next couple weeks here go, but he now has that spot secured, which is a pretty cool place to be for him. And a lot of great players. Anthony Edwards in the Western Conference is one of the great players that was not named an All-Star starter. So it's something that I think it's a very elite company. Only 10 players in the NBA receive that honor. So that was one kind of encouraging and a positive storyline from today. The other one is Jayson Tatum, who did his entire full-length workout in front of media today at practice. The Celtics had shoot around 30 minutes north of the Little Caesars Arena here in Detroit at Seaholm High School in Birmingham, Michigan. And normally Tatum works out when we're not present. Today he did his full workout in front of the media. There were cameras, there were phones. There was a bunch of us. It was like 7 reporters that made the trip out to Detroit for this game. And Tatum goes through form shooting, dribbling drills. He's being guarded by Tony Dobbins, assistant coach, who is also a great defensive player. He was French League Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. He's in his 40s now, but that's, he was making life hard for Tatum about these drills, real physicality, ball handling, hand checking, all of that. So he didn't do anything where I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that Tatum could do XYZ now, and now I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Like, he kept it pretty tame. But the fact that he was doing anything at all in front of us seemed like it was a positive indication. And also, he is dunking off 2 legs. Like, he was pretty engaged. I don't want to say like he was super, super explosive, because nothing was at game speed, but you can watch. We have the entire full, I think we had like 6 or 7 minutes of highlights on the CLNS All Access channel. So you could watch it with your own eyes and draw your own conclusions. But I was just encouraged to see. I feel like something with his vibe has shifted a little bit over the past couple of weeks. On this road trip in particular, like, it didn't shock me today that he worked out in front of us, because he has been super engaged on the bench, just doing more than he was a month ago, like standing up, going kind of nuts. And some of that is just being a good teammate and being a good sport and enjoying seeing the people around you do well. Like, he's been so happy with Anthony Simons finding his rhythm. The night that Anthony had 39 points in Miami was just like an awesome showing for him. Tatum was going nuts. But I always tend to believe that when players are getting closer to their return, there's a new level of engagement they get on the sidelines. And my sample size of that is pretty small. Like, I've only been covering the Celtics. This is my 3rd season. But Kristaps Porzingis last year dealt with a bunch of different injuries throughout his tenure. And with that, whenever he was coming closer to coming back, you could see it change, his feeling change on the sidelines. Like, he misses the first, third or almost half of last season, recovering from that ankle surgery. And for a while, he was cheering, he was being professional on the sidelines, but then he went through a stretch there where all of a sudden he's being super animated. And then I think I said it on the Garden Report, but like, felt like his return was imminent. And then you see that here. You see he gets cleared like a week later. So I don't think Tatum is like a week away, but this definitely felt like a milestone in his recovery to have just this renewed engagement on the sidelines, a full hour-long workout in front of the media. And he looked pretty good. I mean, his shot looked good. He was able to handle Tony's physicality. It's just, I don't want to get carried away and be like, oh my gosh, he was going NBA game speed. Like, he looks like he's about to come back next week. That was not my conclusion from the workout, but it was definitely encouraging. Like, the betting odds all rose of like Tatum returning, the Celtics winning the title, Tatum winning Finals MVP, like all those odds increased. I don't know exactly what they were before, but I saw that was, and I wasn't surprised, because I was like, hey, this is new information. Like, nobody has really watched any of his workouts. He's shared some highlights on like YouTube and Twitter and his Instagram story, but not like a whole lot. So that's it. That was my thoughts on that. But you can check out the full, if you want to watch it for yourself. You can tell me if you felt super encouraged or if you noticed kind of little things. We have the full highlights from that workout on the CLNS All Access channel, as well as a bunch of interviews. We talked to Derek White at Shoot Around. Derek was saying that just as a friend, it's been fun to watch Jayson kind of inch closer towards his recovery, and just, he didn't share anything about timeline, obviously, but he said it's been just encouraging to watch, and it's been great to have him. I mean, again, like, Tatum has been on the road since preseason. I did not expect him to be traveling to Memphis in October when he was months, if not a year, away from returning, because we didn't know if he was going to come back this season or not. So he's been locked in. He's been locked into film sessions, coaching players up on the sidelines, and now, obviously, kind of increasing what he's able to do on the court. So positive sign, positive to see Jaylen Brown be named an All-Star starter for the first time. And I thought overall, this road trip wasn't perfect. You definitely would love to have that Indiana Pacers game back. Ultimately, they lose on 2 game winners. Like, the first and last game of this road trip, they had a game winner that would have, a potential game winner. Derek had an attempt in that game against the Pacers, and obviously Jaylen has an attempt here tonight in Detroit. And then they had 2 games, one that massive blowout against the Hawks. And I really liked that Miami game, how they were able to come back from being down 19, and Anthony really gets going. And again, Sam turning things around in this trip. There was a lot of positive developments overall. Entering tonight, the Celtics have the best record in the NBA since December 1st. So even if it feels like they've been on a little bit of a skid there, everybody's been going through it a little bit. The Knicks have been on a disastrous run. They're like 1-9 in their last 10 games. So even though the Celtics lose tonight, they hold on to that second spot in the Eastern Conference. So again, early in the season, it's 42 games in. So standings are, you don't want to read into them too much, but they are in a pretty good spot, and they get to go home now and play the Pacers, get a little revenge for that tough loss to start the trip. And then they have a relatively easy back-to-back road game, Brooklyn Nets and Chicago Bulls. Obviously, nothing's easy in the NBA, but the next 3 games are against teams kind of near the bottom of the conference. So hopefully they kind of are able to pull all those out. But that's it for me. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed all of our coverage from the road. I'm exhausted. I can only imagine how tired the Celtics feel. I didn't even go to Indiana, but I was just in the last 3 stops here. Let me know what stood out to you from this game. Let me know in the comment section. I always read all the comments and love to hear your guys' thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to CLNS Media and CLNS All Access, both of our YouTube channels. You can find my channel. You can find my podcast on CLNS Media as well as our Garden Report. So thanks as always for watching. We'll have more coverage coming up soon.